I'm a bartender. And to me, bartending is about so much more than just serving drinks. It's about community. So you can only imagine how heartbroken I was when the pandemic hits and we're basically forced to just close our doors indefinitely. I tried to find other sources of income. I even tried running a cocktail delivery service. For a while, I did okay, but just not nearly enough to live comfortably. I was looking at having to sell my car, pawn a guitar or two, but the final straw came when it looked like I might have to put my dog up for adoption. I can put up with a lot of nonsense, man, but the idea of having to take Ripper to the pound. Never. I just couldn't. That's when I got desperate. Desperate enough to consider something pretty drastic. To make it clear, I'm a guy in my late 20s. Not completely awful looking, but definitely not Brad Pitt. So I'm sure it'll come as no surprise to many of you when I say that my financial salvation came when I started a Yep. You sure could guess it. An OnlyFans account. It all started when I heard two of my friends talking about dad bods. Dad bods, I remember saying. You'd for real prefer a beer cut to a six-pack. Okay, not like a beer gut, she said with a giggle, but like, I don't know, like the slightly out of shape look. It just feels real, and besides, gym rats just don't seem fun. You know, dad bods are like chill. That was probably some bad phrasing in my part, but you get the picture. The whole dad bod thing and been around for a while. But when I told the girl, she must have something of a niche interest. She just laughed. Nope, it's way more popular than you think. And she brings up this OnlyFans profile of some Nick Offerman looking dude who had like a ton of posts up. All the buttload of likes and comments. This guy makes thousands of dollars a month. His profile is free to sub to, but he does eventual request stuff to watch. I'm like, no. Thinking she's about to show me this guy's junk or whatever, but no. Apparently, the guy did like tuck you in videos or good morning, sweetie videos where he pretends to wake up next to you before offering you breakfast and stuff. It was the tamest adult content imaginable. Legitimately PG-13 stuff, and he was charging upwards of $50 for a personalized video. The whole rest of my shift, I kept thinking about that guy. Thinking how happy he must be to get all this money. And this following was so wholesome too. What's not to like about a setup like that? Sure, I bet there was some steamier stuff behind a paywall somewhere. But come on, a few $1,000 a month. Just to tell some girls sleep well. Why couldn't I get a piece of that sweet OnlyFans money? But nah. I'm not that guy, or at least I wasn't. I had all the confidence of 2-day-old fawn back then. But then again, I suppose desperation drives us to do stuff out of the ordinary. It was pretty surreal setting up the account. Like I had to come up with a fake name, an attractive username. I had to take a display picture, selfie, and banner picture. It was a whole thing. I was doubting myself the entire time, but I still went and did it. And since all the pictures were as anonymous as I could make them, those masks helped protect more than just my breathing. I suppose I wasn't all that concerned about getting found out. Besides, that would pretty much be the end of the whole thing. It wasn't like I was going to actually get any followers or anything right. Right. Well, wrong. Because maybe 3 days after, just when I was starting to forget about the whole thing, I get an email notification from OnlyFans that says, "Like users 78. 76 is now following you." Just to be as generic as possible. I set up my subfeed of $4.99. Then when I checked the payout section, boom! Like $4 was headed into my bank account at the end of the month as an upfront charge. I also had a direct message that just read, "Loving your pictures, can't wait to see more X." I couldn't tell who the person was. There was no bio on their account. Nothing to even clue me into if they were male or female, but still I just reply, "Thank you so much." If you know anyone who might enjoy my content, please share my profile with them. I get a will do in return. Then that's that. A few days later, I get another sub. Then another. By the end of the week, I have a grand total of 10 loyal, but totally anonymous subscribers. The extra $40 a month was paying for most of Ripper's dog food by that point. Not the good stuff, but I didn't have to consider giving him up anymore. And that meant you can bet your butt I carried on posting. If the only way was up, then up I was going. By the end of my 6th week of OnlyFans, I just short of 50 followers, and was making just under $200 a month. And I put that down to solely me, opening myself up to special requests. A lot of them came in the form of daddy stuff, which is undeniably kinky, but still mostly just sweet and affectionate. I didn't have a problem with it at all, and once I gotten a little confidence under my belt, I go so far as to say that I got pretty good at it. But as it turned out, the real money was in a kind of domination. That was considerably less wholesome. Some people didn't want me to just be nice to them. They wanted me to be really, really mean. I remember the first time I started to feel really disillusioned with the whole thing. One special request wanted me to make a video where I basically just downright was abusive. Then when I read that, they wanted me to call them all kinds of slurs. I just felt gross. It was the first time I had actual confirmation that some of my subscribers were gay guys, but that wasn't really it. It was the things they wanted me to call them. They're what made me feel deeply uncomfortable. I replied to the DM saying sorry. I can't do that. Is there anything else I can work in for you? But no. The reply was almost instant, and it consists of them just doubling the dollar amount they were offering. The first time they did that, I actually got a little offended. That they honestly think that I just cave because they flash some cash. It was about principle, not making money. So you can guess how straight up gross I felt when they threw a 4-figure amount at me. And I feel gross just typing this, but yeah, I accept it. I called them some of the most despicable things that have ever come out of my mouth. And you know, I did a pretty good job of it too. I want that money. And it's honestly shameful how quickly I abandoned my principles. I felt bad. Really bad for like a few days. But when another offer came in from a different user, asking the same thing for the same price, I just couldn't say no. The bar wasn't even paying us any sort of unemployment anymore. We were like 3 months in the lockdown, and the money just sort of dried up. So by then, whether I liked it or not, I was almost entirely dependent on OnlyFans for my income. And when the request got worse, I had little choice but to fulfill them. Looking back, I shouldn't have let it escalate. I could have kept things at the level they were at and still live pretty comfortably until the New York City bar scene opened up again. But no, my greed took over, and at one point, I bought an entire pack of wet Italian sausage, just so a guy could imagine what his junk would look like after I stamped on it, and steel-toed work boots. I thought this was as bad as things would get. I was wrong. The red line event for me was getting a follower from another user, 827484 style account. The anonymous kind you always get the weirdest DMS request from. The guy threw an obscene dollar amount at me, but also mentioned that some of that money was for procuring materials. As he put it, long story short, this person wanted me to head down to an apartment building where a Hispanic lady was selling puppies. I was to go down there, pick one up, then bring it back to my apartment. I asked why, but they wouldn't tell me. They just gave me some spiel about being genuine and being a huge source of potential income in the future. But this was a puppy. Nothing good could have come out of mixing OnlyFans and baby animals. And what do you know? I was right. I won't go into too much detail about what this user wanted me to do, but it was some of the most evil, heinous stuff I'd ever heard. They wanted me to hurt the puppy and just kill it. Hurt it over the course of days, maybe even weeks, from some of the stuff that they were DMing me. When I outright denied their request, the threats began. Whenever I blocked an account, another one would pop up and pay the sub fee, knowing it would be returned when I inevitably blocked them. By the time I started getting scared that this person, or group of people I could never tell, will get a hold of my contact details, I had to be brave enough to just click that little delete profile button and face the music. So, I'm currently living with my mom and her boyfriend out here in New Jersey. I can't actually describe how much it sucks to be living in a garage with my 30th birthday fast approaching. But I also know my life could be so much worse. Every time I miss Williamsburg, every time I miss having my bank account being padded for next to no work at all, I just look over at Ripper, give them a pat and think, yeah, COVID is sucked. It's ruined a lot of lives, including mine. But at least I have my popper. It all started with a Zoom call. At At least I only became aware what's happening because of a Zoom call. For all I know, it could have been happening for much longer. But the day of the second post-lockdown work meeting was the first time I noticed it. We're in the middle of pretty tedious brainstorming session with a few members of marketing, when the coworker interrupts whoever's talking to address me by name. It actually made me jump at first. I was totally tuned out, so hearing my name brought me right back around again. I respond, huh? Yep, I was listening. When I notice the person who addressed me is now closely studying their own laptop screen. I don't mean to alarm you, they said. But I think someone's watching you through the window behind you. I know exactly which window he's talking about, so I turn. A bit nervous at the idea of discovering he's right, only to see that there's no one there. I'm more relieved than anything. To be honest, I figured he was playing a joke on me, because he clocked that I was nodding off during the meeting, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't maybe deserve it. A little bit. Very funny, I said. And a few of the other callers had a little titter at the impromptu prank. I'm sorry, but I wasn't joking, the guy said. Did no one else see that? I'm so sure. Age, probably just seeing things. Someone else chimed in, and within a few minutes, the whole thing was completely forgotten. A smudge on the screen, a bit of lag on the call. Eyes playing tricks, there were 100 ways to explain it. The truth was literally unthinkable at that stage. A short while later, the exact same thing happens. The same guy interrupts, only far more urgently. This time saying, look, it's right there. I'm not imagining it, you can all see that, yeah. I know what he's talking about. Only I don't turn around immediately. I look at my own webcam feed to see what he was talking about. And right when I see, it was clearly the silhouette of the head and the window behind me, I hear one of the other callers saying, "Oh wow, I see it too." I spin around just in time to catch the quick blur of whoever was watching me ducking out of view. I'm actually really creeped out at this point, because it obviously wasn't just somebody walking past my ground floor bedroom. Someone actually stopped to stare inside. My window is even facing the street. It's at the side of the apartment block, like you have to actually go out of your way to find it. I'm only 5'3" and I'm 8 stone. Which pretty Americans reading this means I'm tiny. And I had to make sure if someone was actually creeping on me, they weren't just hiding out and waiting until I was vulnerable. So phone in one hand, kitchen knife in the other. I tell the Zoom call that I'll be right back, and then head out to make sure that everything is kosher. It's peak lockdown during all this, so the streets are pretty much deserted, so I think I'd have noticed anyone wandering around. But there was no one, a soul in sight. So I guessed, or rather hoped, that it was just some neighbor kids messing around, maybe looking for a wayward ball or something. About a week goes by and the whole window face incident has been at the back of my mind the whole time. For a lot of young women who live alone, the idea of being targeted where we're most vulnerable is frankly terrifying. So the prospect of that nightmare coming to life just didn't bear thinking about. I'm not saying I was on edge the whole time, or that I lose sleep over, or anything. But let's just say I held my keys a little tighter in my fist. Whenever I walk down the street, my apartment block is on. But anyway, at one point, I head out to the grocery store to pick up food, and I end up caught in one of those super long COVID lines that you're stuck in for like 40 minutes before you're allowed into the store to buy your stuff. This is on top of the fact that the store near me had implemented this dumb one-way system in the aisles in an attempt to stop the spread. My point is, a trip that would have normally taken like half hour ends up taking more like 90 minutes. And an annoying amount of my day has been completely wasted. So I'm already in a bad mood by the time I get back to my apartment, only to find that the front door has been bashed in. Apparently, there'd been a break-in while I was out. If only criminals could work from home. It seemed obvious that it was a burglary at first. All my stuff had been strewn around. Drawers and cabinets were opened and emptied. The TV was still there along with my PlayStation. But most break-ins just go for jewelry and phones. I heard anything small that they can pawn easily. Obviously, I called the cops like there and then, who arrived within a half hour or so. They advised me to help them look around the apartment for anything that might be missing. Valuable electronics and whatnot, but I told them I already looked, and that nothing obvious seemed to have been taken. My bedroom looked like it'd been hit by a bomb. Clothes have been strewn all over the place. Whole drawers have been pulled out and flipped. Like whoever broke in was looking for something. One of the cops spent some time looking around in there before he called out to his partner. "Hey, we need forensics up in here," is what he actually said. I asked him what the deal was, if he'd found something that I should know about. Both cops have been more friendly and helpful up until that point. But when I asked my forensics was needed, one of them told me not to worry about it, to stay out of my bedroom for the time being. It was no big deal at first. I was just grateful that they showed up so fast. Even if they did wear masks and insist on keeping 6 feet between us at all times. So by the time forensic scene showed up, I'm out front of my apartment building, talking to my mom on the phone. Only when I see what they're actually doing in my apartment, it triggers what I can only describe as a mini freak out. The eyes and gloves and white cover, all suits, have been scooping big handfuls of my underwear in the bags, sealing them and taking them out to the truck outside. And then it dawns on me. Whoever broke into my apartment had left DNA on my underwear. And I probably don't need to tell you how exactly they done that. The whole thing grosses me out, too much for me to actually type it. But the thing that really got to me was, if I'd actually been home that afternoon, there's no telling what would have happened if some violent perv had actually gotten their dirty hands on me. But anyway, the story does actually have something of resolution, and thankfully a happy ending. because they have this guy's DNA. Police were able to match it on their database with the guy who'd had multiple run-ins with the law for public exposure, among other things. He was arrested, and he's now looking at 3 years in prison for aggravated burglary, some kind of charge like that. But the whole thing came full circle for me in an interview with some detective who mentioned that this guy liked casing his victims' places before he struck. Over the past month or so, have you seen anyone hanging around your apartment? Who doesn't live there? Maybe someone looking through your window. He said it. He literally said it. It was him that day when I was in the Zoom call. It was him that had been looking through my window. He'd been stalking me for God knows how long. And when it came for him to actually get me, only by the grace of God was I lucky enough to have been out grocery shopping. Otherwise, it doesn't bear thinking about what might have happened. I'm an 18-year-old female from the UK. This happened in February of 2019. I was 16 at the time, and I got set up on a semi-blind date. We had seen photos of each other. I am mutual friend. The guy was called Cameron, who was 19. Cameron seemed like your average guy. Maybe a little into video games and anime and stuff, but overall nothing my friends told me about him seemed off in any way. Our mutual friend gave us each other's numbers, and we texted for a night, and decided to meet in the Starbucks the next day, since we were both free. I never liked to meet new people this soon, but figured since Cameron knew my friend, it couldn't possibly go wrong. How mistaken I was. I arrived slightly early, ordered my coffee, since I never liked guys to feel like they have to buy it for me, and pumped up a seat facing away from the door, and pulled out a book. I'm there for maybe 15 minutes, chilling out, when I get a text saying he's here. So I'm like, great, I'm at this table. And I feel a presence over my shoulder. And I turn my head slightly in acknowledgement. He must be here. Before I even get the chance to squeak a hello, his lips latch onto my neck and he starts sucking on it. Now, I don't like people touching my neck. At the best of times, I'm very ticklish. And I get super uncomfortable by people even touching it. A few times I've had massages or hair treatments, and I've been holding it in discomfort, and he's latched on like a leech. This man also smelled horrendous. Kind of like dust personified. I freak out and elbow his chest to get him the hell off me. He lets go and looks at me with this weird expression on his face, and laughs in deadpan. It's really, really creepy. And I start to become alarmed, and ask him what the hell that was about. And he just said he thought it was cute. I tried to have a conversation. I'm like, okay, first impressions don't mean anything. Let's try and give him a chance. He's just creepily staring at my chest. Wow. I didn't know Asians could have boobs like that. I better not let you go." That's a direct quote. You can't make this crap up. I'm distinctly uncomfortable, but I don't want to just run away. He's giving me really weird vibes. So I go into the ladies' bathroom and wait for someone else to come in. I asked you to help me get out undetected. I don't want this man following me home, or something like that. She of course agrees and lends me her hat and scarf. It's February in the UK after all. And we come out the bathroom together and she manages to help me sneak out the back door of the Starbucks, without him noticing me. He asked my friend where I went, but I told my friend to never mention me again. I was too terrified. I know I probably didn't behave well. I should have just told him I was leaving. But I was honestly so scared. To the guy who decided it was appropriate to suck my neck before we had even said hello. Let's not meet again.